quite unique to celebrate the achievements of the 2022 class. In the next few minutes, I'd like to present the logistics of the ceremony and briefly introduce our speakers so that the speeches then can flow after each other without major interruptions. We will have therefore a series of brief speeches as you saw on the program. Professor Robert Aguirre will start. He's the Dean of the College of Arts and Letters, and he will open our celebration with welcome words on behalf of James Madison University. We are very, very grateful that he accepted our invitation to come to Florence. He had a quite adventurous trip yesterday, and today he's here in spite of all these travel, let's say, interesting moments to share this moment with all of us. As a dean, he leads an organization of more than 300 faculty and staff members, 10 academic units, several interdisciplinary centers, and almost 4,000 undergraduate and graduate students enrolled across 50 academic majors, minors, and certificates. So a huge school that of which we are a part, of course. After the Dean's welcome, I will just say a few words of greeting to the graduates, and will then be followed by Professor Blake, who will give commencement remarks. Dr. Blake is the Executive Director of the program, a faculty member of James Madison University's Political Science Department, of which he has also served for many years as chair. The keynote speech will be delivered by Dr. David Jones, who is also a faculty member of the Political Science Department at James Madison University and director of its Washington semester, a program that brings students to DC for a full-time internship with political institutions on Capitol Hill. He's also a coordinator of the department's alumni activities, so a very important element as well in our community. Following Dr. Jones, we will then hear remarks on behalf of the graduating class of 2022 from Mo El Tayyara, who will talk about the Florence experience from the perspective of the cohort in this past year. After the speeches, we will move on to the most interesting part of our ceremony, namely the presentation of the awards and the presentation of the graduates to our community and the wider world. And we will conclude with a reception that will take place next door, to which, of course, all of you are invited. So, it's time to start. I would like to give the floor to Professor Aguirre to come to the podium to say his words of welcome. Thank you, Professor.
Can you all hear me without the microphone? Yeah. So, as Katerina mentioned, it's been quite an adventure getting here from James Madison. As I was standing in what seemed like an interminable line in the Florence airport, trying to hand in a sheet of paper so that my luggage could be delivered to the Palazzo, of course my mind went to Dante. And to some unimagined chapter of the Inferno, which takes place in an airport or a bus station where travelers are stranded or otherwise bereft. And as a literature scholar, of course, I think of most things through scenes either real or imagined in literature. And I was thinking some new author, some new Dante must write this chapter for all travelers. I was also reminded of the wonderful bit of etymology about travel. which is that the word travel is etymologically connected to travail, which means hardship. And for centuries, travelers have endured lots of hardship in order to become travelers to beautiful places like this. And then finally, I was thinking that even though I did not have my suit and my tie, which I really wanted to wear, that I should have remembered the immortal words of the American author Henry David Thoreau, who said, "Beware of all new enterprises that require new clothes." So with that, I will just apologize for my appearance today, but it is just such a delight to be here with you. I'm so grateful to the organizers of the JMU Florence program for inviting me, for the faculty and the staff both here and at JMU, which make this possible, and most of all to all of you, the graduates. You have so much to be proud of, and your parents and family and friends here gathered to celebrate you. So in terms of this program, I want to say that I have learned during my time at JMU that this is one of the great jewels in the crown of JMU. And it's not just the facilities, which are grand and wonderful, and it's not just the city, but it's all that happens in this environment, in this context. The learning that you get to do as students, in place, in situ, in the place where it happens, or as they say in the musical, in the room where it happens. And that is priceless. That is absolutely wonderful, and you should feel very, very proud and happy at this moment for having been able to go through this program successfully and to have learned in this deep, immersive way. When we think about what it means to learn, we are convinced that learning happens in an amplified and magnified way when you can do it experientially. Of course, we all read books, we learn from books, we write books, but we also know that the gold standard of learning is experiential learning. And that's what you've been able to do here as a result of the wonderful people with whom you have worked. Secondly, I would say that recent events in European and global history have reminded us that EU studies is as important as ever. We need not look far beyond the front pages of the major newspapers, even to hear the sounds of war on the edges of the European Union, to remind us that what you have studied here is also critical for understanding the world that we're in and the world that you, as graduates of this program, will help to shape. So there is the experience of learning here in this beautiful city, and there is also the content of what you have learned and ways of approaching this most critical question in our world, which is how do we work together? I am not so much a pessimist that I will take the inability of the airlines to cooperate in delivering my luggage as any sign of the inability of countries to cooperate in solving the major problems that beset us, whether they are immigration, climate change, the world of information, misinformation, disinformation, political strife, political discord, the rise of authoritarian governments across the globe. So these are all problems that you have acquainted yourself with and are prepared to lead as you graduate from this program. So on behalf of all of JMU, but particularly the provost who sends her regards, the dean of the graduate school who sends her regards, and all of the faculty in the College of Arts and Letters, I say congratulations to you on a job well done. We are so thrilled that you have completed this program and so delighted at the prospect of what you will do with your new skills and training. So thank you for being here and congratulations.
I would also like to spend a few minutes to greet graduating cohort 2022. In the last few days, I went through some of your predecessors' past were very light, if you want. They were telling stories of academic milestones achieved by the cohort, but also very normal experiences looking back at the time, like shopping, traveling freely across the continent, meeting people easily, etc. There was a lightness of being, you know what it means, that completely disappeared in 2020. In that year, graduation had to actually be moved online and had to be postponed from June to September because of the pandemic's impact on the entire world. The speeches at the time focused on academic achievement at times of extreme crisis. So the mood, the sense, the feelings expressed through the speeches were completely different. All the courses had moved remotely that year, and of course online. The EUPS 2020 cohort had to move back to the United States all of a sudden, first week of March, and remained since then online until the end of the program. Hence a very different and nevertheless successful experience in its own way, in the sense that all the students of that year obtained their masters, although of course in very unusual and limiting circumstances. Of course, the experiential dimension that we heard about from Professor Aguirre was almost entirely missing, or rather, there was a different type of experience. We began to learn how to deal with a pandemic and managing a program in a pandemic, which was even harder. And that was useful, though, for the following year, 2020-2021. That cohort spent most of their academic year on a roller coaster. They began with 2 weeks of quarantine upon arrival, and then openings, closures, lockdowns, openings, closures again, and of course the illness of COVID-19 and its limitations in terms of isolation, quarantine, and stress. That cohort, for sure, gained an expertise at ordering food online and finding the best online class spots within their own apartments, as they shared with us during that speech last year. That year was really strange in the sense that in the fall, after the initial 2 weeks of quarantine, the semester was relatively normal, but then there was an outburst of the pandemic in January 2021, which actually brought lockdowns again, and the majority of the semester went online. And at that point, every day was mostly, as the students described it, bed, desk, kitchen table, couch, and bed again. Worse, the travel limitations, which did not allow students to leave Florence, and then Tuscany, and then Italy for the entire year. So the impossibility of completing that part of the experience of living in another continent, which is so important to our master's students. In the summer, finally, Europe began to relax restrictions, and students had some time to visit mostly Italian destinations, and it was only, I think, until 2 weeks before graduation that the European borders actually reopened. But it was definitely a little bit too late. In spite of all of these hurdles, though, the cohort made it through the year successfully, thanks to the relentless commitment of the entire on-site staff of the program, the JMU staff, the JMU administration, who kept, of course, although from And now to you, to this cohort, 2022. What a lucky year. Yes, you were very lucky. Weren't you? Yes, you were lucky, in spite of the ups and downs of the pandemic and the connected limitations such as having to wear a mask for the majority of the year, both while walking around and in classes, and experiencing also an outburst of the illness in the cohort in January, which forced the classes to move online for a period. You were able to experience, luckily, a continent that was reopening and was certainly more open and relatively travel-friendlier than the year before. And I think the fact also that you were coming from 2 academic years of pandemic in your undergraduate or former jobs made you extremely grateful for what you had, which was definitely not yet the normal, but came very close to that. You certainly had the advantage of seeing Florence and Italy without any tourism. Think about it. This will remain hopefully a completely unique and non-replicable experience for all of us, but remember how we felt when we saw the tourists come back and the masses of people impeding us from walking around? I remember you complaining hard about it. So, you know, you saw the difference and you had this unique, I think, once in a lifetime, hopefully, experience for all of us to see Italy without tourists. Even when, remember, we went to Rome, Rome was silent. We experienced the archaeological sites without people, you know, that we had to fight against to see an old stone. So it was quite unique also in that sense. So I noticed that all of this, your status of individuals that had come out of 2 years of lockdown, made you very, very aware of how lucky you were to be in this situation. And I noticed that you were grateful for the small things. You appreciated life and its gifts, maybe even more than those for whom everything seemed to be granted before the pandemic. And this made you a very eager and enthusiastic cohort. You were extremely active academically, all of you, and very attentive during our excursions, for instance, when I had a chance of, you know, living with you 24 hours a day and really watching you in action. I noticed in particular your eagerness to learn about the history and the geography. Also, of course, the political geography of the capitals that we were able to visit again in person after 2 years of online visits. Rome and Brussels. Old politics, ancient archaeological politics, and modern, present-day politics. You were not scared of walking for hours and discovering ruins or modern political districts. You were always listening hard to speakers, even at the end of a very long and challenging day of walking in the heat. This will remain, I think, a characteristic of this cohort. The eagerness, the attentiveness, the desire to learn in person, the humbleness, the respect, and the gratitude. So please do keep these experiences in your heart and in your minds as you move on with your lives and professions, and remember that that is the right approach. That is the right attitude. These traits that you have manifested as a cohort and as individuals will most certainly help you and bring you far in life and in the profession in the next years. we of course will follow you. And we will look at you from afar and remember you with extreme fondness. Please stay in touch, of course. Don't forget us. And thank you. Please come to the podium for the commencement remarks.
Thank you, Professor Paolucci. Can you hear me all right with the microphone? It sounds odd from where I am, but that's because I can't hear the back of the room. I'm in front of the room today. Welcome, as my colleague Caterina Paolucci has said, to all of the people who have supported our students from afar and from right here in Florence. I would like to ask the students to join me in thanking all of the people who have supported you in your efforts here over these last 10 months. Graduate school is a lot of work. And I think that when we think about going to a graduate or professional program, that's the first thing that leaps to our mind. And particularly for the vast majority of our students, both in this cohort or any other cohort, who come to this program immediately after or shortly after finishing their undergraduate studies. And thus that means that the bulk of our students come here to graduate school, as I did, having lived the life of being a professional student since we were 4 or 5 years old. And so to a certain extent, we have a lived sense of what it means to be a student. And we talk to people about graduate and professional school, and we think that it's going to be like our undergraduate education, but more in depth. It's going to be harder. And then you look at this program and you say, well, I'm going to do it in another country, and I'm going to do it faster. I'm going to do the whole, what normally in the United States would be a 2-year, 20-month program to 22-month program. I'm going to do it in 10 months. So it seems like graduate school is going to be a lot of work. And I think that's now a lived experience that you've had, is that it's a lot of work. And it's work that you've done well. But what they don't tell us when we're undergraduates and thinking about going to graduate school is that it's not just that graduate school is more work than undergraduate education. It's more like work than undergraduate education. By which I mean it's more like a job. When we are high school students and when we are college students, we have groups of people that we see every day. They're the people that live in our neighborhoods when we're undergraduate students, when we're college students, they're the people that live in our dorms or apartment complexes. And they're the people who are in the clubs and sports teams that we participate in as high school students and as undergraduate students. And those are the people that we see every day, or almost every day. They're our family beyond our own biological families when we are in high school and when we are undergraduates. But the feel of graduate school is very different. The cohorts are smaller, the work is more focused, and it really is thus more like a job, where you see the same students every day who are your coworkers, who have all these tasks that you're doing, and then you have all the other people in your work family who are also working alongside you. The staff members on our team, the faculty members on our team, the various other people who dedicate time to interact with our students and give generously of their time coming to Florence or meeting with us when we go to Rome and when we go to Brussels. So there's this extended work family. And I guess the image that I would like to conjure up, which works for people from the States, it doesn't work so well elsewhere. One way to think about work is that every day is like Thanksgiving Thursday. Seems like an odd thing for me to say. So let me unpack that a little bit. The thing about a job that's like Thanksgiving Thursday in some ways, but iterative, and that's crucial, and that's why I want to include all it keeps repeating, is that there's a bunch of people that you're in some way related to, but you only actually have strong relationships with some of them. So when you enter graduate school, or when you enter the workplace, it's going to be the same way. Except that often, you will have no strong relationships initially with anyone. But then over time, you will build them out. But when I say that work is like Thanksgiving Thursday every day, what I mean is, on Thanksgiving Thursday, the tendency is to do at Thanksgiving in our own families what we do in our high schools and our undergraduate experiences. We spend the time with the people we get along with and know the best, and we have a tendency, sadly, to ignore the other people. That is what I've observed over the many, many Thanksgivings that I've participated in. And I go to big Thanksgivings, so maybe my experience is framed by that. I mean, my Thanksgivings that I've attended over the arc of my life, from being in elementary school forward, have ranged from a very steady 20-something when I was in grad school, when I was in grade school and high school, and then as an adult, they've tended to be more from 25 to 50. So in part, my use of this metaphor is framed by that, but there's a purpose to it. There's another way that reaction to Thanksgiving Thursday has a logic to it. It's not just convenience. It's the notion that a lot of the people, especially at an extended Thanksgiving, we only see on Thanksgiving. But the reason that I'm bringing up that as a metaphor is that's also a temptation at work. A temptation at work is to focus only on the people that we either by the course of our duties have to spend the most time with them, or the people that we get along with the best. But if we take that default setting of convenience into the workplace, we won't have the same experience. Because the workplace is, people often use the term work family, my work spouse, my work brother, my work sister, my work sibling, to refer to these relationships that we're particularly invested in. But the whole notion of that metaphor of family is that for the workplace to be as productive and enjoyable and empowering as it could be, we need to do the same thing in the workplace that we should also be doing with our extended family members, which is investing in those relationships. And unlike Thanksgiving Thursday, work provides a framework where we could actually do that because we see the same people every single freaking day. Day after day after day. But what I am asking you to do as you head out into the workforce, graduating from this practitioner-oriented program, is to take the very important interpersonal skills that you were forced by the program to develop, right? Where we throw 12 people together and say, get a graduate degree in 10 months, right? Look back on your experience over these 10 months by living closely and working closely with one another. Reflect on the people that you've learned about over the course of those 10 months and how your opinion and relationship with those individuals changed because of those repeated interactions with one another, and your patience with one another and with all of us working to help you. They say patience is a virtue for a reason. But sometimes we hear patience the way that some preachers will say, well, we have to be patient, and as parishioners we hear that as we have to wait until all of our life is over and then we will get our reward. I don't mean patient in that sense. I mean patient in the sense that not everyone, as we know, interacts with one another in the same way. So I mean be patient with that in your relationship building. Not all relationships are going to fire in that first day, or that first week, or that first month, or that first 6 months of working together. But I guarantee you that if you are as patient and invested in your work relationships as you have been in your relationships in this program, that is a pathway to a better life for you, a better workplace for everyone that is where you are at. And on the macro-political questions that my colleagues, Professor Aguirre and Professor Paolucci have mentioned, it's the only way out for us as a global human family, is if we are more willing to be patient with one another. So I want to congratulate you on the way that you have invested in this program, but most importantly, I want to congratulate you on the way that you have invested in one another. Cherish and nurture these friendships and continue to build other professional friendships as you move forward. Congratulations, graduates.
And now, Dr. Jones, please come to the podium for your keynote speech.
I thought about the Thoreau quote as I'm walking across the stage with my brand new shoes. Let me just say I'm grateful the shoes worked, and I'm grateful for you including this program and in your celebration of this extraordinary set of accomplishments, and we'll talk about it. I actually have a slightly different topic. I'm going to start with a different topic than I had intended. I'll get around to the original, but I first have to share thoughts that have been shaped by my experience so far living here in Florence for a month and a half, very time compared with yours. So the first part of my talk has changed. I wanted to share a little bit about some remarks that Professor Paolucci shared with my students last week, and a reflection. We're reflecting on one of our trips to Turin, and this is part of the program. They take these trips and they come back and talk about their experiences, and their reflections were really interesting. I think Professor Paolucci was struck by a pattern, which is they were just talking more broadly about how meaningful these experiences were. And Professor Paolucci said, reminded us that people come to Italy to find their roots, to find out, to discover or rediscover who they are, to learn more about humanity, to appreciate humanity, who we are as humans. And I say that's especially true for Florence, the cradle of the Renaissance, of course. What a gift to have this experience. You have earned a Master's of Arts in Political Science with a concentration in European policy, European Union policy studies in 10 short months, as Dr. Blake said. I know this was a rigorous program, and I know that because I know my colleagues, Professors Blake and Adelino, two of your instructors, and I know they have earned the reputation in our department as being two of the most rigorous and demanding professors we have. And I have learned that extends to my new friend and colleague, Professor Paolucci. The same characteristics apply. It must have been challenging for you to find time to experience all that Florence has to offer, but I know you did. The museums, all the other cultural and historic sites are just on their face, amazing. And to experience Florence, though, as you know, all you have to do is walk outside your front door. Right? The everyday, daily experiences, daily habits that were described very beautifully by your classmate, Sophia, in an essay which you should all read. Well, because this program I have appreciated that you have earned a true liberal arts master's degree. The curriculum and your professional experiences, of course, focused on policy. But living in Florence and experiencing Florence gave you that humanities portion of that experience, that degree. This is why your degree, above all other masters in public policy, I would say, is singular and important. Your newfound expertise in public policy that has been fundamentally shaped by the humanities-based immersion in Florence and Italy more broadly. Many of you will become public servants in various capacities, maybe even in the private sector, and in various ways you will serve the public. Well, we need this perspective that you've gained. We need your singular perspective to confront the challenges you will face as policymakers or people who are involved in policy, who have committed to public service. You know the problems, climate change, racial justice, economic disparities, massive and unpredictable migration patterns triggered by all of the above, weakening democratic norms, further complicating our progress on these issues. These, of course, as you know, are global problems made more daunting by the universal complications of the new information age, including one where you uniquely have developed a special set of skills to apply. You have immersed yourself in culture. You've had to adapt. You've had to walk in another person's shoes. You've had to develop tolerance for cultures that are different or out of sync with your own, and perspectives that are not like yours. You have had to show respect and develop a sense of respect for other people's viewpoints. As Professor Blake said in several conversations, the geek out term for this is cross-cultural competencies, is what you have developed. What an incredibly useful set of skills when we have such a difficult time empathizing and respecting people who are not like us, people who disagree with us, and people who share a fundamentally different worldview. I study the media, and one of the challenges that concerns me the most about what I study is how the changes, various dramatic changes in the media environment are enhancing citizens' ability to narrow their media diet, their media experiences. And then the related problem of the spread of misinformation and disinformation on topics ranging from election results to the pandemic to vaccines. Again, a global problem, not one limited to the U.S. Before we blame social media, which I think everyone has a tendency to point their finger to, let's remember that the defining characteristic of social media is that it democratizes the flow and the distribution of information. It turns it over to us to a great extent. So information flow is no longer simply a top-down phenomenon controlled by corporate media, which is what we used to worry about and still should worry about. We citizens now contribute to the distribution and flow of information. Naturally, we know from research that we tend to favor stories that support our existing views, reinforce our existing views, rather than challenge them. And we tend to favor, oddly enough, perhaps not surprising, information that makes us angry and upset. This is the new world we live in. And information that really no matter their accuracy. So this phenomenon has reminded us of the relevance of what psychologists have long called, way before social media, long called motivated reasoning. Motivated reasoning describes our tendency to resist and fight information that challenges our existing opinions. And that's just a lot easier to do today. We have more tools at our disposal to engage in motivated reasoning, thanks to the changes in the media environment that give us greater levels of control over the information we see and the information that we engage with. So, and then meanwhile, you have a host of opinionated partisan media outlets out there that will tell their audiences, tell us, that they're right. Whatever outrage you're feeling, you're right to feel that outrage. And then the other side is not just wrong, but a dangerous and mortal threat. So sometimes we long for the good old days when we had just a handful practices of journalism, in addition to the business imperatives that came with their corporate ownership. Well, those days, of course, are long gone, for better and worse. So one of the challenges that you will face as public servants is you're working at a time when the public no longer trusts sources of information, has far lower levels of trust in institutions, including government, for which some of you will work. And then furthermore, that trust has declined. We have less trust in each other, fellow members of the public, and certainly members of the public who are different than we are. And this is where your skills, I think, are so important. The experiences that you gain if you attend short months. Famously, academics like me are really good at identifying problems and terrible at finding solutions. Well, I'm going to punt here and say the solutions are up to you, colleagues and leaders. This is where your singular degree, such an important degree, will be so crucial. Those cross-cultural competencies that are a core element of your experience and a core element of this program. And then you have this public policy, political science master's that is fundamentally shaped from your experiences in the humanities here in Florence and Italy. So when you tell someone, as I'm sure you already have, that you are working on or have now earned your master's in public policy in Florence, and people say, well, that must have been nice. All the wine and the food, the gelato, and the wine and the food and the gelato. You, of course, know that this experience in your education was so much more in ways that you described here. What an extraordinary for you. Congratulations on all that you have accomplished in 10 intense months, and more importantly, congratulations on who you have become as humans. Thank you.
Now on behalf of the graduating class, Mo and Yara.
Can you hear me? Yes. Awesome. Well, thank you, Professor Pavucci, for the nice introduction. But before I start, I need to assure my colleagues, my cohort, that Professor Pavucci promised me she's not going to go on campus and create an assignment for us to write a report about this. You can drop the pens, no need for taking any notes. So, 4 scores and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth upon this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. I'm sorry, it's the wrong speech. Let's move on. Yesterday, December 7, 1941, a day which will live in infamy. Oops, another wrong speech. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. And not again. Another wrong speech. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. Not the wrong speech. Okay, listen. Finally, the correct speech. Good morning, dear friends and families, distinguished guests, esteemed faculty and staff, and of course the best ever EUPS cohort, class of 2022. Woo! I want to begin by saying how humbled and honored I am that I have been selected by my peers to deliver this speech today, as well as hopeful for what the future will bring for all of us. This is not my first public speech. However, addressing such a loving and intelligent audience gives the speech another flavor of accomplishment, as well as not panicking about logging into Canvas and seeing a bad grade. The 4 American presidents I quoted came from diverse political backgrounds. All four presidents' speeches somehow exemplify what our graduating class is about. November 18, 1863, Abraham Lincoln stood in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, while a bitter war was tearing the country apart. He reminded us of the importance of the pursuit of societal justice, something Professor Blake repeatedly reminded us about during his policy analysis class. December 8, 1941, President Roosevelt spoke to the entire board about the resilience and determination of the American people, helping to lead the free war to victory over tyranny and evil. Just as Professor Paolucci, how she helped shape the resilience and determination of this graduating class. Then came May 25, 1961, when President Kennedy spoke about the story of American ingenuity, which took mankind to the moon and beyond. The professors and staff within the EUPS graduate program have witnessed how creative and inventive this group of students has proved to be, with all the normal hurdles of life in a foreign country, as well as adding a little pandemic in the mix. Finally, one step for man, one giant step for mankind has run true for this graduating class. Let's hope the next one won't have as many obstacles to overcome. And finally, June 12, 1987, when President Reagan spoke his famous words, Mr. Gorbachev teared down this war as a sign of American solidarity and commitment to advancing and protecting the values of freedom and democracy in Europe. You can look into the eyes of every graduate here and witness the spirit of solidarity and commitment that drove them to this very day. Belief in societal justice, resilience, ingenuity, and solidarity are the four values I want you to remember at the end of this day when thinking about this special class of EUPS 2022. I would like you to join me in celebrating this group of talented students by highlighting their best traits, accomplishments, and aspirations. Let me start by highlighting the fact that this has been one of the most diverse group of students in the EUPS program. Lina, a second-generation immigrant. Jennifer, a proud Puerto Rican. Alex, from a small rural town in Arkansas. Ian, from Florida, proud Floridian. Our Jersey girls, Sophia and Rachel. An Irish Boston boy, Colin. And from Virginia, Malik, Elizabeth, and Rowan. Noor, our international colleague with an Egyptian flair. And I, a first-generation immigrant and the holder of the EUPS oldest student record to date. That should get us into the Guinness Book of World Records. In the past 10 months, the class of 2022 has successfully accomplished every requirement set by James Madison University, completed every class satisfactorily, met with a large number of European Union officials, both online and in person, completed academic excursions to Rome and Brussels, conducted a successful EU simulation, Go Greece, participated in the EU State of the Union 2022, and wrote, a plethora of reports and academic papers. We accomplished all that while juggling a pandemic, moving from in-person to online and back to in-person teaching, cycling through a wave of positive cases within, and a multitude of personal challenges. During all that, we kept the same high moral fortitude that we started the program with, keeping a positive attitude and having a priceless smile, to make you wonder what we have been up to. Now comes the hard part. To take all the knowledge and skills we learned during the past 10 months and transfer them into positive, forceful power to change not only our country, but hopefully the world. Some of us, like Ian, are aspiring to join an NGO and make the world a better place for humanity. Others, like Sophia, are aspiring to keep the fight going for a clean climate and maybe working on a new global Green Deal. Who knows? Some, like Liz and Rachel, are looking to make our State Department a better place. Some, like Alex and Jen, are looking to continue their education journey. And some, like Colin and myself, are looking to serve the cause of our country's national security. Be careful taping everybody. While others have not set their mind yet, I am confident that they will move to accomplish great things in life. I can continue with the stories about the resilience of my fellow cohorts, but somehow I want to thank the select group of individuals for all the accomplishments they have achieved in the last 10 months. I hope you all feel as proud as I do about all of us, and I'm sure that the future brings a chance for all of us to prove to the world what we can do. Having completed their undergraduate studies in various universities, it's my pleasure now to welcome Jen, Noor, Ian, and Alex to a very select JMU alumni. I can officially pronounce you now fellow Dukes. So, go Dukes!
And so let us now move to the heart of our ceremony, the conferral of the awards and the presentation of the graduates. I will invite Professor Blake to move forward from the podium to award the selected students. So we confer 2 awards, the Best Paper Award and the Outstanding Student Award. These awards give us a wonderful opportunity today to recognize together the accomplishments of the students who excelled during the course of the past year, producing good work and showing passion and commitment to their studies. The first award goes to the best paper presented to the faculty of the Policy Analysis and Public Policy classes and the faculty altogether. Through this class, students present their work produced from September until the end of the spring term. So it's a very long process. So it's a sort of capstone paper produced over the course of 2 semesters of study about specific EU policies, and this year the general topic, let's say, was environmental policy. So students could choose within that very wide field to present their proposals of reform of European policies on the environment on more, let's say, specific areas. And the scientific committee has awarded the prize to the paper on sustainable agricultural practices written by Rachel Acorsi. who has shown, can stay there, who has shown determination and continuity of high-level performance. She has demonstrated solid interest in the subject matters and excellent research, analytical, presentation, and teamwork skills, in addition to enthusiasm and a very positive attitude. Congratulations, Rose. Let us now proceed to the very, very, very center of the ceremony, the recognition of the graduates. So Dr. Jones, can you please come to the podium and call the graduates' names, while myself and Dr. Blake will award them. Thank you.
Rachel Allen Corsi. Jennifer Amparo Ballesteros. Sophia Eklund Kaluga. Noor Ibrahim Ghazi. Lina Agazi.
wish you all the very best. May you always pursue your passions, in life, in the profession, in the same way in which you have pursued European, transatlantic, global politics this year. And don't forget to take pride in your university, James Madison University, the same way in which the university takes pride today in all of your accomplishments. Stay tuned, of course, as alumni of the program, and we look forward to very soon continue working with you, of course, in a different capacity in the future. Congratulations. Graduates, please stick around for the photos that we have to take right now. See you all in a bit. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.